Welcome, everybody. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Vines. I'm Director of the Africa Programme here at Chatham House, and I want to welcome all of you who are here physically in the room with us at Chatham House, but also all of you who are live streaming. I know there are many of you on different platforms from Facebook, Facebook Live, Zoom, so you're all very welcome. This meeting is very much on the record. There's media in the room, so no Chatham House rule is required. And I'm delighted that we have this opportunity today to hear from Professor Yakubu, the chairman of the INEC Commission, the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, about preparations and priorities for electoral integrity and inclusion for the forthcoming elections in Nigeria. In my view, this is a very critical meeting to understand the preparations. There's a lot of urban myths going around about Nigerian elections, about the processes. And so this is a great opportunity for those here in the room, but also those of you who are live streaming to be able to both listen, but also to ask questions. So we have an hour to do that. Just a reminder that this meeting is part of a series. So we have had presidential candidates speaking. Last year in December, we had Bola Tinubu, we had Peter Obi yesterday, and I do encourage you to either on the virtual platforms watch tomorrow or come here and see in person Mr. Kwankwaso, who's also the presidential candidate for the NNPP. So elections and their conduct is something that we take very seriously at Chatham House, and chair of electoral commissions from Nigeria are not strangers. We did have Professor Jega here in 2015, for example, speaking on a similar topic. He was also nominated by the members of Chatham House for the Chatham House Prize. In the end, he didn't succeed to win the prize, but he came very close. And I think that is a signal, an indication of the seriousness that we regard INEC chairs here at Chatham House. So with no more ado, Professor Yakubu, I'm going to invite you to come to the podium here to give your presentation, and then we can have a conversation. So again, thank you everybody for attending today. And please do send in your questions if you're on the Zoom platform. We'd be very grateful to see them, and I think on this occasion there'll be plenty of time for a Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Vines, and I want to thank Chatham House for the invitation to speak today on this illustrious platform, which has over the years welcomed exceptional intellectuals, celebrated public servants, and renowned statesmen. I have been informed that I am only the second chairman of Nigeria's Electoral Commission to speak at Chatham House after Professor Adairu Jega in 2015. I appreciate this profoundly. I am all the more excited because I've been invited to speak on Nigeria's 2023 general elections, with particular emphasis on preparations and priorities for electoral integrity and inclusion. It is exactly 38 days to the next general election in Nigeria, which I have both the privilege and challenge of leading its proper delivery. Elections in Nigeria have become events that attract extensive international attention and concern, not only because of the sheer size of the deployment, but also because of the importance of Nigeria in Africa, and most particularly in the West Africa sub-region. Understandably, therefore, there are enormous expectations, both within Nigeria and internationally, about the conduct and management of the 2023 general election. The expectations place a great responsibility on the election management body, the Independent National Electoral Commission. We are not taking these responsibilities lightly. We appreciate that there are challenges and concerns, but we also realize that there is enormous goodwill and support, both in Nigeria and beyond. Consequently, we believe that by forthrightly sharing our experiences and discussing the challenges openly, we can surmount the challenges and ensure that our elections in Nigeria continue to get better. May I, on this note, once again reiterate our position that the Commission is not contemplating, let alone planning, to postpone the 2023 general election. We are going ahead to conduct the election as scheduled. But by way of preliminary remarks, I wish to remind you about 3 important facts about Nigeria's election, which I believe many of you are aware of. Number 1, given the geographical expanse of the country, the number of registered voters, electoral constituencies, and polling units, conducting general election in Nigeria is a huge undertaking. The delimitation details are simply staggering. 93.4 million registered voters expected to elect their representatives in 1,491 constituencies spread across 176,846 polling units. Based on the figures we compiled from the websites of various electoral commissions and interior ministries in West Africa, Nigeria's current voter population is 16.7 million, higher than the 76.7 million registered voters in all the other countries put together, and there are 14 other countries in the sub-region. This means that a general election in Nigeria is like conducting elections in the whole of West Africa and beyond. Secondly, Nigeria's election is not a one-day activity. There will be national elections followed by state elections. National elections, that is presidential election and elections to the 2 houses of assembly, the Senate and the House of Representatives, will hold on Saturday, 25th February 2023. On that day, voters will elect the president and 469 legislators made up of 109 senators and 360 members of the House of Representatives. State elections will hold 2 weeks later on Saturday, 11th March 2023, to elect 28 out of 36 state governors and 993 members of state houses of assembly. I say 28 governors because in 8 states the elections are conducted off-cycle because of previous litigations. So we have already conducted those elections, the last being Ekiti and Osun in June and July last year. Thirdly, the 2023 general election will be the 7th consecutive general election in Nigeria since the restoration of democracy in 1999. And this is the longest period of electoral democracy in the country's history. Previous efforts, as we very well know, were repeatedly truncated by military interventions. In approaching the subject matter assigned to me by Chatham House, my lecture is divided into 3 broad areas. The first one is lessons from the 2019 general election. The second, preparations for the 2023 general election, looking at early planning, the electoral legal framework, voter registration and permanent voters cards, election technology, expansion of voter access to polling units, inclusivity, recruitment and training of election staff, interagency collaboration and support, and finally, electoral operations and logistics. Number 3, issues and challenges such as the prevailing insecurity and its impact on the election generally, attacks on INEC facilities nationwide, violence during electioneering campaign, vote buying, electoral litigation and adjudication, prosecution of electoral offenses, and for many in this hall, the nagging question of diaspora voting. Now, these wide-ranging issues cannot be covered in detail, if at all, within the 20 minutes, or if Alex is flexible, 20 long minutes, which may be 25 or 30, that I have for my presentation. I will therefore highlight the more critical issues so that we can have more time for discussion. Actually, that's the part I like best, the discussion. I have prepared a 23-page lecture, a copy of which will be given to the organizers and will also be uploaded to the INEC website immediately after the presentation and discussion. Lessons from the 2019 general election. Preparations for the 2023 general election are largely being concluded and preliminary deployments already underway. Indeed, our preparations began quite early. One important lesson from 2019 is that early preparations for election provide opportunities for adequate planning, acquisition, and testing of systems. A second lesson from the 2019 election is that early choice of election technology management tools, especially the main election technology, is very critical for success. Their proper pilot testing and deployment are exceedingly important for a successful election. For election technology, early decision is central to maintaining its integrity, popularizing it among voters, and addressing any challenges that could arise. We know that political actors often try to undermine the process by attacking the technology, casting doubts on its suitability, bypassing its use, or indeed seeking to undermine its security. This informed the early choice of a new voter accreditation technology using an electronic device called the bimodal voter accreditation system. We have tested it in several by-elections and off-cycle governorship elections. In addition, the decision to make polling unit election results available for public viewing, which has always been a major demand by citizens and election observers, falls into this early choice of election technology. The INEC Results Viewing Portal, the IREV, is a dedicated web portal for the public view of polling unit results as soon as they are finalized on election day. This has been employed in several elections conducted by the Commission in the past few years. In particular, the uploading of polling unit results to the IREV portal has been deployed in 105 constituencies where the Commission conducted off-season elections since August 2020. The result can still be viewed on the portal, making the IREV an invaluable repository of election results in Nigeria. It is actually our biggest archives for election results. And citizens and anybody who registers on the portal can still view the results for all the 105 constituencies. And I kept asking those who care to approach the Commission that what we have been doing is to upload the scanned images of polling unit results, and the same hard copy is given to party agents at polling units on election day. And I've consistently asked candidates and politicians to compare the results on the IREV portal with the hard copies brought by their polling agents from the polling units. And I asked them if there were discrepancies. It's 99.99% accurate, and the results are still there on the IREV portal. Now, a further lesson from the 2019 general election, which is helping us immensely in our preparations for 2023, is that an early finalization of changes to the Electoral Act, the principal legal basis for elections, is critical to proper organization of elections. In the build-up to the 2019 general election, there was an unending back and forth between the executive and legislative arms of government on the Electoral Act. And in the end, the amendment was stalled. And one consequence of this was that INEC could not conclude work on the regulations and guidelines for the election, which are meant to drive from and be consistent with the Electoral Act as early as we intended. Since the Commission has no say As such, in the passing of the act, it had to wait for a final document to emerge from the process, which ultimately did not materialize. The several recommendations that the Commission made to the National Assembly to include them in the amended act to improve the quality of elections, such as the strengthening of the use of technology, early conclusion of candidates' nomination, as well as the timely funding of elections, never ultimately became law. It is noteworthy that this time around, the Electoral Act 2022 was passed in good time, and it has addressed some of the issues and challenges we encountered in 2019. The last lesson from the 2019 general election is funding, an early release of funds to the Commission, which are also very important to well-organized elections. And partly because of delays in finalizing the electoral legal framework for the 2019 general election, finalizing the budget for the election, and arranging a good schedule for fund releases to the Commission, all this was rather tardy and challenging to the Commission. And to add to the pressure on the Commission, there were over 14 million more voters to cater for in 2019 compared to 2015. It required painstaking and prolonged engagements with the Commission, and both the executive, within the Commission and between the executive and the legislative arms of government, for us to make some headway. And given that practically all activities for the elections depended on funds, printing of ballot papers, the result sheets, to hiring of election staff and transport providers, the Commission could not meet many of its targets in preparing for the 2019 general elections. So, learning from this experience, what have we been doing to make sure that 2023 is better than 2019? The first point to make is election planning. And learning from the 2019 general election, a great deal of forward planning and engagements have been undertaken, and many aspects of our preparations attest to that. First, we concluded the new 4-year strategic plan and strategic program of action, as well as the 2023 election project plan, over 18 months prior to the date set for the election. So these planning tools were ready 18 months ahead of the elections, which gave us a very good start. Then the Electoral Act. Elections are essentially anchored in law, and unlike the case with the 2019 general election, new Electoral Act was signed into law on Friday, 25th February 2022, exactly 1 year ahead of the general election, giving time for both the Commission and all stakeholders to fully acquaint themselves with the challenges in their responsibilities and functions. As an affirmation of our readiness for the general election, the Commission released a timetable and schedule of activities the following day after the law was assented to. It went into force after it was assented to by the President. The following day, on Saturday, 26 February 2022, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities. It contains 14 activities to be implemented from the publication of notice of poll to election day. And I'm happy to say that the Commission has accomplished so far 11 out of the 14 activities for the election, and all of them on schedule. So there are only 3 activities outstanding. The new law contains some very important changes that hold the potentials for improving the quality of Nigeria's election. I've identified 10 most important provisions in the new law, but time will not permit me to go through all the 10. But they are all listed in the lecture, which, as I said, will be made available immediately after today's session. Related to the Electoral Act are the regulations and guidelines. The Commission has powers under the law to come up with regulations and guidelines to govern the conduct of election, drawing from the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. The Constitution cannot be expected to say everything. So members of the National Assembly, drawing from their powers under the Constitution, make subsidiary legislation. And then, in turn, even members of the National Assembly, through subsidiary legislation, cannot say everything about the conduct of elections. And in turn, they donated part of their powers to the Commission to make regulations and guidelines. Together, the three instruments are called the Electoral Legal Framework. So very quickly, for want of time, what have we been doing about perhaps the most important foundation for democratic elections, the registration of voters? You can't have a credible elections without credible register of voters. That is critical. Now, this has been a major component of our preparations for the election. The law requires the Commission to conduct voter registration on a continuous basis. However, the law also provides dates for suspension of the process to prepare for general election. Consequently, continuous voter registration, as we call it in Nigeria, or the CVR, was suspended on the 31st of July, 2022, to resume after the general election. And I'm sure you must have heard about the provision of the law as to whether it is 90 days or not later than 90 days. I would leave it at that. If we have time, we can discuss it. There are some words used by the legal draftsmen that give the Commission flexibility. Sometimes it's not later than, sometimes it's not earlier than, sometimes it's on a particular date. But if there is time, we can take this up during discussion. The CVR, as I said, was suspended on the 31st of July, and in 1 year, from the 21st of June to the 31st of July, 12.2 million new voters were registered, out of which 9.5 million were validated after a thorough cleaning up of the data. We believe that the enthusiasm, especially among young people, was partly responsible for this surge, but they are also motivated, we believe, by the innovation of online pre-registration introduced by the Commission. For the first time, we introduced the online pre-registration of voters, where citizens can commence the process online, but they have to go to the physical or designated registration centers to conclude the process. This enabled intending registrants to commence the process online from a dedicated portal, book an appointment on the same portal, and finally appear in person at an INEC office to have their biometrics taken. The cleanup of the register was painstakingly conducted by the Commission because the automated biometric identification system, the ABIS, before now the Commission used the AFIS, the fingerprint identification system. But this time around, we use the ABIS, meaning both fingerprint and facial. And that is what we're also using to accredit voters on election day. And all these innovations were all the work of INEC's own engineers in-house in the Commission. The machines may have been fabricated outside the country, but the design of the machines were done by our own engineers in-house. In fact, one of them said that they are going to introduce a new biometric using body odor. I said, please, not yet. Let's make haste slowly. But when he explained it to me, it sounded logical. He said, don't laugh, Chairman, because I said body odor is also a biometric. He said, how does your dog recognize you? It's from your body odor. And that's why if another person walks to the house, it barks. When you move into the house, it wags its tail because it recognizes your body odor. I said, but for elections, let's wait, not now. So we use the ABIS to clean up the register. But also, there is something that is perhaps peculiarly Nigerian. Who owns the register of voters? It's the people of Nigeria. The law says that when we finish registering new voters, we should add them to the existing register of voters, meaning that the 9.5 million that we clean up after the last CVR should be added to the 84 million registered voters for the 2019 general election, and then subjected to scrutiny, claims, and objections by Nigerians. And this requires the printing of hard copies of the register and displaying same in 8,809 wards and 774 local government areas. For that alone, we printed over 9 million pages for that exercise. So at community level, citizens can look at the register, tell us, are there ineligible persons on the register, persons who by virtue of age are not supposed to be on the register, or citizenship, or the deceased, or multiple registrants? Again, because of the Electoral Act 2022, we did something that doesn't avail. We published the entire National Register of Voters on our website. And citizens had access to them, and you probably saw on the social media how they're picking up pictures of people all over and saying all manner of things on the social media. Now, the purpose of claims and objections is that people whose names have been misspelled or their personal details, or they have realized that there are some people that shouldn't be on the register, it was their responsibility to inform the commission. And there is a procedure for making these complaints. At the end of the exercise, over 53,000 names were annulled from the register as a result, essentially, of citizens' action. I want to say this, that the National Register of Voters in Nigeria is the largest database of citizens in Africa. And we believe that the core of it is solid. But like every database, it's not perfect. And we'll continue to work to improve on that database. One of the complaints we received arising from the claims and objections said that there were underage voters in 15 states, and they submitted an 138-page document. And personally, I took time to study the document, line by line, blow by blow. They identified 21,000 plus in eligible registrants in the 15 states. And so I asked them, is that all you have identified? He said, that's all that they have identified. But in the 15 states, there are 37 million registered voters. So the 21,000, in terms of percentage, comes to 0.06% of 37 million, meaning that 99.94% of the register is solid. So we'll continue to engage citizens on this. And as I said, once the backbone of the register is solid, then all we need to do is to continuously update. Some of you may be aware, as Nigerians, that with every general election until 2010, voters were asked to register afresh. But with the introduction of the biometric register in 2010-2011, we are only asking those who have come of age or did not register before to register. Not every Nigerian is called out to register. But as you can see, the number has been increasing from about 70 million in 2015 to 84 million in 2019 to 93 million for 2023. And who knows what the register of voters will be next election in 2027. So Nigerian law requires that voters must possess the voter's card, what we call the permanent voters' cards or the PVCs, to be able to vote. And following the cleaning up of the register, the cards for both new and old voters, the law said that even if your name is misspelled during the CVR, go and get a new card. INEC will correct the misspelling and print a new card for you. So we have reprinted those PVCs and we have made them available for collection. When we started making the cards available for collection, We operated at the level of the local government area 774. We later devolved the collection to 8,809 wards. Only last week, we extended the collection at ward level, and overall also extended the collection until the 29th of this month. However, the process is still ongoing and is going to go on, and we're encouraged by the kind of numbers we are seeing. The figures I received yesterday from Lagos shows that over 600,000 cards have been collected in the last 1 month alone in Lagos. Lagos has the highest number of registered voters, but by the same token also the largest number of uncollected cards in the country. But probably now with what is happening, the largest number of collected cards in the country. And we have warned our staff because we have had so many complaints in the field, bottlenecks having to do with sundry allegations of extortion by our own staff. We'll investigate and deal with it. Or inducement by some people, registered voters, induce the officials. Please, I don't want to waste my time hanging around. Take this. Here is my temporary voter's card. Here is my telephone number. As soon as my card is available, call me. This one is also illegal, and the Commission is prepared to deal with it. And then we also had complaints about discriminatory issuance of PVCs in some locations. And these are allegations that we're also going to deal with. In fact, we have already issued a circular to all our state offices. The resident electoral commissioners should keep their eyes on these processes to ensure that every registered voter gets his or her card, but there will be no collection by proxy. That's why we have moved away from collection, from distribution to collection. If we were to distribute, all the cards will go. In 1 week, all the cards will leave INEC office, but they may end up in the wrong hands. But we are putting the onus on the registered voter to collect his or her card. So the emphasis is not on distribution of cards, but on collection of cards. Next, I'll go to what many of you are interested in, I'm sure, hearing from the Commission, and that is on election technology. Now, in order to avoid the usual challenges with the application of new technologies, the Commission introduced and tested our innovations for election early enough. There are 3 critical components. The first one is the INEC voter enrollment device. It's called the IVED, for improved registration of voters. It's the same beavers, but when we register voters, there are peripherals we add. We add the fingerprint scanner and a thermal printer, so that we can register, take the fingerprints, and also print the temporary card. Then we have the INEC bimodal voter accreditation system for both voter accreditation and transmission of results for collation, and then the IREV, the INEC result viewing portal, to offer public access so that citizens can view results at polling units as the processes conclude. IVED has been deployed in the recent CVR, and as I said, we have 93.4 million registered voters, of which 37 million, that's 39.5%, are young people, young Nigerians between the ages of 18 and 34. And then they are closely followed by 33.4 million, or 35.75% middle-aged voters between the ages of 35 and 49. Put together, these 2 categories constitute 75.39% of registered voters in Nigeria. So actually the 2023 election is the election of the young people, because they have the numbers. Even the majority of the PVCs collected actually are collected by young people. So out of the 93.4 million, 70.4 million registered voters are between the ages of 18 and 49. Already the PVCs, as I said, are available and are being collected, and the collection of the cards will end on the 29th of January. We have to end it because before the election, we'll publish the number of PVCs collected on polling unit by polling unit basis nationwide. So I'll skip the other thing about electoral operations and logistics, but let me go to inclusivity before I round up inclusivity and diaspora voting. Our commission remains fully committed to making Nigerian elections inclusive. Inclusive elections constitute an essential part of democracy, and that's the reason why in our commission we regularly speak of our commitment to free, fair, credible, transparent, verifiable, and inclusive elections. And over the years, we have worked with various stakeholders to increase the participation of young people and women. Participation in the process, it may not necessarily be participation in elective offices. Under our constitution, no one can contest election unless and until he or she is sponsored by a political party. And we have been engaging with the political parties to see what we can do together in that respect. And then the work of the Not Too Young to Run movement did a lot in reducing the age requirement for contesting some electoral positions, which actually underscores the Commission's youth policy. In addition, the Commission has a gender policy introduced way back in 2012 to guide or provide a fairer working environment for women in the Commission and in the electoral process, and we remain committed to these policies. But in addition to that, we have been engaging with the disability community nationwide. Only last week, we met with Inclusive Friends and the Albino Foundation, and we are going to be providing a lot of assistive devices, both as a requirement of the law and as a practice. The albinos complained that we should help them to be able to see the logos of the political parties on the ballot papers better, and so we introduced magnifying glasses. For the blind that could read Braille, we introduced Braille jacket. And then for the deaf, they said they could see, and they didn't need those assistive devices. They asked, what could we give them? So in discussion with them, we came to the conclusion that we should provide posters for them that will also help them, and we'll continue to do more in that respect. In fact, we are working together to launch a data dashboard that captures all registered voters with disability in all polling units nationwide, disaggregated by type of disability. By the time you get the paper, you'll see the distribution of voters in Nigeria by disability, including the percentages by type of disability. Diaspora voting. Our quest for a fully inclusive electoral process will not be complete as long as Nigerians who are living outside the country are unable to vote. And voting by millions of Nigerians living outside the country remains a recurrent issue for the Commission. Nigeria is said to have one of the largest diaspora communities in the world. Our people are everywhere. However, the Commission only acts in accordance with the electoral legal framework, which remains the main reason why we cannot implement diaspora voting for now, much as we would like to do so. Both the 1999 Constitution and the 2022 Electoral Act provide that voters can only be registered and vote within the country. For instance, Section 77, subsection 2 of the Constitution said that every citizen of Nigeria who has attained the age of 18 years residing in Nigeria at the time of the registration of voters for purposes of elections to a legislative house shall be entitled to be registered as a voter for that election. And there are other sections of the Constitution that tie the eligibility to register and vote in executive elections, presidential and governorship, to the requirements of residency, as in the case of legislative elections. The Commission hopes that these legal obstacles will be cleared at some point to enable Nigerians in the diaspora to vote. We have actually completed the policy as far as the Commission is concerned, and we identified 2 categories of Nigerians living outside the country. We have the OCV, the out-of-country voting, mainly by service personnel and other Nigerians engaged in, say, foreign service, and those who are engaged in technical manpower. There's assistance organized by the Nigerian government for other countries, particularly in our sub-region. For now, they don't vote. But the other leg of it is for Nigerians permanently resident outside Nigeria. That is the diaspora voting. And we worked with Nigerians in diaspora organizations in the UK, in the United States, and we're even happy that some amendments were submitted, constitutional amendment to the National Assembly, but eventually they didn't sell through in terms of the propositions forwarded to the state assemblies for concurrence before our constitution is amended. Should I talk about attacks on INEC facilities? I don't think this presentation will be conclusive without that. In 4 years, 50 facilities of the Commission were attacked in various parts of the country, mainly in the form of arson and vandalization. Buildings, election materials, and vehicles were destroyed, and sometimes these attacks even targeted staff of the Commission. During the continuous voter registration, some staff of the Commission in Imo State were attacked, resulting in injuries and death. The implication of the attacks is that we have to rebuild facilities and replace materials. And the Commission and the security agencies have increased their presence in some of these locations. The last attack actually happened on Sunday last week, but because of the cooperation between the military and the Electoral Commission, we were able to respond, and the damage was limited to just a section of the building in a local government office. The Commission has repeatedly called for concerted efforts to control and check these attacks. And in December last year, the National Assembly held a public hearing on these attacks, and we hope that authorities have these attacks under control and the response by the security agencies more coordinated. But in spite of these attacks, we'll rebuild facilities, we'll replace damaged or lost items. The election will continue. Finally, we have promised Nigerians and friends of Nigeria that the 2022 general election will be free, fair, credible, and inclusive. And we have left no stone unturned in preparing for it, despite several challenges. But all elections, especially those involving the type of extensive national deployment like we do in Nigeria, will naturally come with challenges. We have worked closely with stakeholders and development partners to confront these challenges, and we are satisfied with our preparations so far. Our Commission does not take the pledge that we have repeatedly made to Nigerians lightly. We are leaving no stone unturned in our preparations, and our commitment remains only to Nigerians and not to any political party or any candidate. Our commitment and loyalty is to Nigeria and the Nigerian people. Only the votes they cast will determine who becomes what. It's not in our hands, it's in the hands of citizens. This is what the law requires of us. We cherish our institutional independence and the integrity of the Commission, and with the enthusiasm of Nigerians, the goodwill of stakeholders and partners, and the commitment of the Commission, we believe that the 2023 general election will be among the best conducted in Nigeria. The only thing I need to add is to say thank you, Alex, and thank you, Chatham House. Thank you very much.
After that, I don't know if you want some water, but there it is. Okay, I'm going to overrun a bit if we need the conversation because the Q&A is so important, and there's a stream of questions on this laptop. But we're going to go around the room first of all here, and I'll take questions in threes. It's good. I think today we may have more opportunity to have more questions asked. So I'm going to move in blocks. So, lady there, first of all. The sister that's behind you, first of all. Yeah, but we'll come to you also. Please go ahead. Do tell us who you are and short question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lyle, and I'm a concerned citizen. So I've got a couple of questions, but I think you've touched on some of it. One of it is, you said that we did try to pass a policy to see if people in diaspora can vote, but it didn't go through. Would you tell us why you think that happened and what we can do for upcoming election? And then secondly, the election is just in a few weeks' time, sometime in February. But then a lot of people still haven't gotten their their PVC. And we see videos every day of maybe INEC officials not being biased in giving out the voters' card. Is there a way, it could be in future, because I don't know what we can do in this short time to ensure that people get their PVC early enough before, and considering a lot of people are registered maybe where they want to vote, and they can't have their PVC unless they travel to maybe their home country, home state, sorry, I apologize for that. Yeah, is there a way we can make that easy for them? And lastly, sorry, just one more.
We'll never get other questions, please, because I know the lady in front of you, I'm going to come back to you, but you're clearly both together. So, no, the gentleman there, we will come back to you. Yes, you, sir. Yeah, just there. I want to make sure we have diversity of questioning also. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Prof. My name is Isaac Taiwo, one of the Youth and Youth Foundation founder. My question is, you've said a lot about what you're ensuring to do to make sure 2023 election is a success, especially for we, the citizen, the grassroots. I believe that the greatest legacy that President Muhammadu Buhari wants to leave for Nigerians is to make sure he leaves a credible and a free and fair election. So my question would be, what assurance will you give every citizen that this will be achieved on that very day, 25th of February, 2023? Thank you.
Great. I'm going to read one out that's come in. We'll be coming back, don't worry. And I will definitely overrun till about past, so we've got time. We have here a question from Tarila Abede, who's from the Conflict Research Network of West Africa, saying, our research shows that despite the gains in Nigerian security forces, communities across Nigeria are experiencing different forms of violent conflicts and terrorism, and armed groups continue to occupy communities, leading to displacement of civilian population and communities. Will INEC conduct elections in communities where there are active terrorist groups, especially in the northeast and northwest? If so, how will it guarantee the credibility of elections conducted in these communities? And if not, how will INEC ensure displaced communities are not disenfranchised? So that's the additional question. So, Prof, I ask you to respond to those, and then we come for another round.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah. You can sit if you want or stand. It's as you wish.
You know, I have been a teacher all my life.
You better stand then. Stand.
We conduct our business standing. So.
We'll put that on the live stream standing too.
Okay, let me start with the last question. I think it was a virtual from a virtual participant on insecurity. Will INEC conduct elections in areas with active active terrorism? If so, how do you guarantee the credibility of the election? If not, how do you disenfranchise citizens? So head or tail, we have to find a solution. The truth is that in areas of insecurity and people are displaced, you can't say you are going to conduct elections in areas of displacement because the citizens are displaced. But consistently, since 2015, the Commission has had a policy and framework for voting by internally displaced persons. If they are organized in camps, in internally displaced persons camps, we can recreate the polling units and enable them vote. It was done in 2015, we did it in 2019, and only recently we convened stakeholders meeting to validate the revised framework and policy for voting by internally displaced persons. The difficulty we face is with those who are not living in displaced people's camps, but they are living with relations in safer communities. It becomes really very difficult to reach out and organize elections for them. We have over 2 million persons in displaced camps in Nigeria across a number of states, and we'll organize elections for them the same way as we did in 2015, 2019, and we'll do so in 2023, provided they're in camps that are organized and we can reach out and recreate those polling units to enable them vote. Leal, concerned citizen, why did the effort to ensure diaspora voting fell through? Is there anything that can be done? It was really wonderful. I had series of engagements with Nigerians in diaspora, both coming from the Americas and from Europe. Particularly there is one in the UK that has been very, very active and very vibrant. And they will attest to the fact that I maintain an open door policy for them. We had series of meetings and we are all excited. At a point we even started collaborating with the Nigeria in Diaspora Agency, headed by, I think, Mrs. Abike Dabiri. And we had series of engagements. And the proposal went to the National Assembly. But at the National Assembly, the proposition was defeated. So the position of law remains that unless you are a resident in Nigeria, you cannot register and you cannot vote. But I'm absolutely convinced that it's only a matter of time when this will be achieved. Voting by those in the diaspora, as far as we are concerned, should be a settled issue. And if you ask me whether I support it or not, I will tell you that we are preaching to the converted. But the Commission doesn't have the power to make it happen. The enabling law will have to be provided for it to happen. Not just because of the remittances, because I've had people talk about the remittance by Nigerians in the diaspora, and therefore they should be given the right to vote. I think it's because they are citizens, and citizens must enjoy rights. It's not about means. Otherwise, the richest person in a country will probably have 2 votes, but he has only one vote. So it's a matter of right. It's not a matter of the contribution that they make. But of course, the nation appreciates the contribution that those in the diaspora make. You talked about the challenge of PVC collection. You know, the number of PVCs we have uncollected is historical, is cumulative. It goes back to 2011. So much of the cards that are collected are actually from recent registration. So what we need to do after the election is to sit down with stakeholders and look at this matter thoroughly. Are these cards actually, at the end of the day, collectible, or we'll just keep carrying them forward with every election and they are not collected? But the historical cards are not collected as many as the more recent registrations. Isaac, assurance to every citizen that there will be free and fair election. Election is a multi-stakeholder activity. INEC has been giving you these assurances. I think we have demonstrated this, particularly in some of the more recent elections. And that is what we are going to carry forward to the general election. So as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned, that one is a no-go area. The votes cast by citizens should determine who becomes whatever in our country and in our democracy. I think I answered the question from Terila. Thank you.
Let's get more questions. So the gentleman there, no, the gentleman in front of you. We still have time. Go ahead, yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Vines. Thank you so much, my professor. Well done. Good speech. I understood what you said, everything. I hope Nigeria will get a good election, inshallah. My question is very simple. I'm Dr. Isia Kushitu Al-Mustafa, lecturer, business management and tourism Global Banking School, London, and Plymouth University, an independent port consultant to Nigerian government. Nigeria spent a lot of money in every cycle of elections over the years. And in your lecture, you made mention of the lessons, whereby we spend a lot of money, funding is key issues, and release of funds is key issues, and Nigeria, statistically, is very poor, economic-wise. We know everything. And do you think it's a good recommendation for next government to make election like a 7-year event, whereby instead of having 4-year term of presidency in the government, you have a 7-year term, which ex-President Jonathan advocated for. So that this will reduce the tensions over the years in polity, and as well the money spent on the economy, money that's supposed to be churned out to education and health. Do you think it's feasible based on the experiences?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right at the back there, question. Yeah. No, yes, there. So I know who you are. I'm just trying to say I don't know who you are. Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Lena Coney-Hoffman. I'm an associate fellow with the Africa program here at Chatham House, and I lead the research on social norms and accountable governance. So in July of 2022, we released our latest results and findings from our reports and work that we've been doing in Nigeria on vote selling behavior and democratic dissatisfaction. It's available on our webpage. And one of the findings that we had was around ballot secrecy. So that's my question to you. A lot of vote buying and vote selling transactions have to do with the level of ballot secrecy. So how is INEC going to improve and guarantee ballot secrecy in the upcoming elections to allow perhaps voters to renege on these vote selling and vote buying transactions? That's an important aspect of that transaction and the expectations of that transaction. So to what extent is INEC guaranteeing ballot secrecy and improvements in that regard in the upcoming elections? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. One more coming in here. Please, I will be this side of the room. Don't worry. We still have time. Ode Friday from the Accountability Lab in Abuja is asking, I'll be glad to hear from the prof on asset declaration on political aspirant. Very few have put this out. Section 85 to 90 talk about campaign fines being declared, but no public evidence of this. Thank you. Over to you.
I always find it easier to start with the last question because I didn't have enough time to write it down, so it's fresh in my memory. I can't miss it. On asset declaration, I think this is a constitutional matter. Asset declaration for all public officers. And there is a procedure and there is an agency responsible for asset declaration. It's not necessarily tied to election. You know, the Constitution is also very clear on conditions for contesting an election. An asset declaration is not part of it, but all public office holders must declare their assets as a matter of constitutional responsibility. I hope that answers his question. Now, Lydia, you talked about ballot secrecy. Yes, in Nigeria, the law provides for open, secret ballot. In other words, there has to be a ballot box in the open, but the choice made by citizens must be in secret. And that's why the Commission provides the voting cubicles, and then there is a ballot box in the open. Once a citizen makes his or her choice, the ballot paper is dropped in the open in the ballot box. Now, you tied this to the question of vote buying on election day. Yes, I mentioned this in my presentation. By the time you get the lecture, you will see I said much more actually than what I could have said or could not have said during my presentation on the issue of vote buying. So it happens like this. In the polling unit, you have the vote buyers. Sometimes they have legitimate reason to be at the polling units because they may be agents of political parties. The law allows for polling agents. And so when people vote, they have a tendency to show the party that they have voted for to the person who is facilitating the buying of the votes before the ballot paper is dropped into the ballot box. What did we do? In 2018, I think, we decided in one of the elections to change the configuration of the polling units by bringing the ballot papers closer to the ballot boxes. The voting cubicles, the ballot box close to the voting cubicles, in order to curtail the distance that they travel between the time they make their choice in the cubicles to the point they drop the ballot papers in the ballot boxes. We thought we were making some progress. But another election followed a few months later that year, off-season governorship elections. Then we learned that they were using their smartphones. So instead of exposing the ballot paper, all you need to do is to go in with a smartphone, snap the marked ballot paper, and then go and do whatever you wish to do later. We then banned the use of not only mobile phones, but even photographic devices in the voting cubicles. Mixed results. In many parts of the country, we don't have built-up polling units. We have them in what we call open spaces. What we provide on election day are the tents or canopies for these polling units. But we'll continue to look into that. But it's not just a Nigerian problem. I also noticed that it's a global problem. Very interesting, I went to the United States for a midterm election some time back, and then you see at polling units posters saying that mobile phones and cameras are not allowed into the polling units. So it assumes that dimension as well. But we also went ahead to introduce the folding of the ballot papers, and we trained our presiding officers. When a voter comes, as soon as the person is accredited and is given the ballot paper, that is the way it is folded. And when they make their mark in the voting cubicles, we encourage them to fold the ballot papers in the same way before they drop into the ballot boxes. But what is all this talk about vote buying? It is also for us an indication of the progress that we are making in our democracy, because it is becoming increasingly clear to everyone that the votes are counting, and that you can't bribe a voter long before the election and expect the person is going to vote for it. So follow the person to the polling unit. And even the polling unit, make sure that the person has voted for you. At the end of the day, and I've said this consistently, is enforcement of the laws. There are laws, but the laws are not enforced. So let me seize the opportunity to renew our appeal as a commission for the National Assembly in Nigeria to speedily pass the Electoral Offenses Commission bill, so that all violators of our laws shall be penalized accordingly. At present, that responsibility is left to INEC by law. But look at the constraints. INEC cannot make arrests. We have no capacity to make arrests. INEC cannot successfully conduct investigations that will provide the evidence that will lead to successful prosecution. But we are saddled with the responsibility of prosecuting electoral offenders. So several committees, 2009, the Waste Committee recommended the establishment of the Electoral Offenses Commission and Tribunal. 2011, the Lemu Committee did so. 2017, the Ken Namani Committee did so. But the good thing is that the Senate in Nigeria has passed the bill, but it's awaiting concurrence by the House of Representatives. So we hope that the National Assembly will do the needful by passing that law, and that law should be assented to speedily before the end of the lifespan of the present assembly. Dr. Isiaku Mustafa, this is the easiest question I can answer. As far as INEC is concerned, we conduct elections on the basis of what the law says we should do. It is not our business to do advocacy for extension of tenure. But whatever the law provides, it's what you do. Thank you very much.
Okay, we just have time for one more round, but we Let me start with the gentleman here. I'm going this side and we'll move across. So you, sir.
Professor, welcome to London. John Cookson from Arise News. The BVAS system has been used before, but not without teething problems, especially in the recent governorship election. What guarantees can you give to the Nigerian people that all the problems have been ironed out and it's going to work properly when it's counting 90 million votes?
Given the amount of hands, what I'm going to do is ask a few more people to ask questions, but choose the ones that you... yeah. So I'm going to put the pressure on you. So the lady there. Yeah, microphone going there. No, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Aisha Agboluaje. I'm a final year student at the Royal Holloway University of London. And this is the first year that I am legally old enough to fulfill my obligation to vote. But I'm here in London, so I can't vote. However, my friends and family that are in Nigeria have spent 2-3 days going to the INEC office or going to the local government to get their voters' cards. And you know, Gen Z, we do not like stress. How are you using the technology, integrating technology to bring voting to the people? We have NIN that we have gone to register for with our facial recognition, with our fingerprints. How are you, using the technology to take voting to the people so that it can increase political participation? Also, in the terms of female participation in politics, I know it's not INEC's problem directly, but don't you think Nigeria would benefit from a quota system like other countries in Africa, like Senegal and Rwanda have? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentleman over there, we're moving along this way. Yes, you, sir. Yeah, in the middle row just there. My apologies, we just don't have enough time for everybody.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm going to make it quick. My name is Yomi Maja, General Secretary, Allied International Club. There has been rumor out there that some persons or groups are trying to actually get you removed from the office. So do you have anything to say to that? And the second thing is that in terms of logistics, some rural areas actually experience some delays in view of the fact that we only have about 5-6 hours voting in the country. I hope you can actually tell us that there's going to be an improvement in terms of distribution. Quickly, lastly, thousands of people...
come on. No, enough. Please. And the lady at the back there. Yes, madam, you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Ndidi Njoku. I'm the principal for Markets for Development and the chair of a diaspora organization called the African Foundation for Development, which we're actually celebrating 30 years. And we've worked a lot with the Nigerian government and the Diaspora Commission. So thank you, Professor, for your presentation. It's absolutely great. Last year, Chatham House hosted the Speaker of the House of Representatives from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. When he talked about diaspora voting, he said that the House had wide theoretical support to bring diaspora voting into fruition, but he mentioned that the issue was a practical issue. So my question is, what is the Commission doing to examine innovative and practical ways in which diaspora voting could be realised? Thank you.
Okay, and finally the gentleman at the door there. Yeah, you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Yakubu. I'm Professor Chris Imafidon. I chair the Excellence in Education Program, and we collaborate with a few Nigerian universities. I just want to clarify from you whether the continued use of senior academics as returning officers, instead of the new suggestion that they may need to use local government officers due to security and safety, is a rumor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And online, there's been quite a few questions coming in. If there's a second round for presidential elections, how prepared are you? That's the question that a lot of people are asking. So we're not asking for you to answer all the questions that you've just received, but I would invite you to kind of sum up, respond to those that you feel appropriate, and then we'll draw to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I will take your advice seriously since you have given me the option of choosing which questions to answer, which questions I'm not going to answer. But I'm going to answer all questions as best I can. So we start with John, Arise News. You talked about the teething problems with the beavers and what guarantees that the machines will work. Yes, we had issues in Anambra and the FCT when we deployed the beavers in November last year and in November 2021 and February 2022. We went back to the drawing board. We have found the solution to the problem. That's why in subsequent elections in Ekiti and Osun, you didn't see those glitches. But I'm not going to say more about what we discovered and what action we have done. Because if you are running web resources, you have to be mindful what you say, particularly at a forum like this, because the bad guys may also be listening. But we are confident. And this is what we have done. And we completed this early this week. We have the machines for the 2023 general elections, but we didn't want to take chances. Each and every machine has been tested and confirmed that the machine is functional. So actually, for the last 2 weeks or so, our officials were in all the states of the Federation testing those machines. And the functionality of the machines is simply very encouraging. So we'll not take chances. The second thing we are going to do, and pretty soon, is to conduct mock accreditation exercise nationwide ahead of the election. We won't wait until the main election comes. We'll test the integrity of these machines with real live voters in selected polling units across the country. We did so in Ekiti and Osun. It was fantastic. We are going to do so nationwide. And increasingly, our people are becoming even more excited about the deployment of this technology. So we are really happy. And in terms of the numbers of the beavers machines, we always make provision for additional numbers of machines in case of malfunction or glitches. And there is always a backup. We have what we call the RA technical support that will fix the machines in the unlikely event of any glitches. And where it needs to be fixed is fixed, but where it fails to function completely in a polling unit, and from previous experience, there are isolated polling units, the law has a remedy that the commission should immobilize and conduct the election in the affected polling units within 24 hours. So we are really, really comfortable where we are on the machines, but we'll continue to do whatever we need to do to protect its integrity and to continue to test it for deployment during elections. Aisha, you asked 2 questions. The first one is friends spending quite a number of days to collect their PVCs. And you talked about the possibility of linkage between NIN and PVCs. NIN is our national identification number. These are numbers issued by a completely different agency. But there is a committee working on the harmonization of various sources of data, from the national identification number, the immigration service with passports, the central bank with bank verification numbers, the Electoral Commission, which has the largest database of citizens in the country, the Federal Road Safety Corps that issues driver's licenses nationwide. We hope by the time we achieve that harmonization, then obviously it will be easier. At that point, we hope it will also be possible for citizens to vote wherever they are, instead of the polling units where they register, because that is what the law provides for now. You have to vote, you can only vote in the polling units where you register. But he said some people are spending 2 to 3 days trying to collect their PVCs. So we hope that with the extension of time we granted, this will ease out. I'm really, really happy with the numbers coming from the states. In fact, it was reported yesterday by one of our resident electoral commissioners. He complained that in one of the states, people are not coming out to collect their PVCs. We'll continue to encourage citizens to collect their PVCs. We'll see what happens after the ward level collation, because after ward level collation, we are coming back to the local government areas for another week until the 29th of January. My appeal is that citizens who have registered should please be patient and collect their cards. But I'm also saying that for those who applied for transfer and relocation, they shouldn't go to the places where they applied for the transfer, but they should go to the places where they wish to vote right now, because that is where the card is. There is a policy in Nigeria that, yes, you only vote where you are registered, but if you are registered in point A, but you want to vote in point B, then you have to transfer your registration to that point. So some people go and apply for transfer. You can apply for transfer from any part of the country. You can even commence the process online. But when the card is ready, we're not going to drop it at the point of application for transfer, but at the point of collection of the cards. So it's important to keep telling the young Nigerians that they should also know that if they applied for transfer, this is the procedure for them to get their cards. Can Nigeria benefit from the quota system? That's the other question you ask. My own preference is for affirmative action. Affirmative action for any segment of the society that is underrepresented. And we saw this in the Kenyan constitution, and it's very progressive. But right now, participation of women, particularly in elective offices, is at the mercy of political parties. And we haven't made much progress in that respect. And you can't contest an election in Nigeria unless you are sponsored by a political party. So we look forward to members of the National Assembly doing some affirmative action. You can't leave a large segment of your population not participating in government in that manner, particularly at the level of elective representation. So we look forward. Again, the best example for me, as I said, is Kenya. They deliberately introduced what you call quota, but actually it's affirmative action. So we look forward to that kind of affirmative action in our country as well. Yomi, he said, persons or groups plotting to oust the chairman of INEC. I'm here, and I'm still the chairman of INEC. That answers your question. Then you said Nigeria has 5 to 6 hours of voting. Basically, we're asking, what can we do? Yes, in theory, it's actually the 6 hours of voting, 8:30 to 2:30. But actually, it's flexible. They said every voter who is on the queue before 2:30 will vote, even if voting goes into the night. So in other words, whoever is on the queue on election day before 2:30 will be able to vote. I remember we also cut the process short. Instead of accreditation, and then you go home and come back at an appointed hour to vote, it's now a simultaneous process. Citizens accredit and they vote, made possible by the deployment of technology. So it's not like 5 or 6 hard and fast fixed hours. It's 6 flexible hours, because whoever is on the queue will vote no matter how long it takes. Chair, Diaspora Organization, he said that someone said that there's a practical issue rather than a legislative issue. That's the impression I get. He said that there's a practical issue that should be addressed, and you tie this to the issue of funding and logistics for election and whatever.
They said that they have wide-scale support, but there was a practical issue. They kind of looked around the world, they didn't see any solution. So it was just whether the Commission are looking at innovative solutions to bring about diaspora voting.
Okay, the best thing for us, before we even talk about innovative solutions, is for the law to be amended to enable us proceed. For as long as the law is not amended, we cannot even begin to innovate. Yes, as I said, we have a policy on diaspora voting, but as long as the law remains what it is, it's going to be an obstacle to diaspora voting. So the law first. Once the electoral legal framework is clear, then we can debate, we can discuss how are we going to start, where are we going to start, what will be the modalities, and what have you. but the law first before we talk about what we do. Then, Prof, you talked about the continuous use of senior academics as returning and collation officers, and you propose that we should perhaps use what, local government workers? Am I getting you right?
Sorry, Prof.
Yeah, it said it's been discussed that they may use local government workers instead of academic institutions.
Who may use local government workers?
Your
The
commission.
commission? No.
Your commission.
No, please discountenance that it must be a rumor. The procedure is very clear. We can't use local government workers. We are not conducting local government elections. Local government elections are conducted by state electoral commissions. There is a procedure, there is a policy, the policy hasn't changed, and that is what will apply for the 2023 general elections. Then
Presidential runoff.
yeah, presidential runoff. Is the commission prepared for a presidential runoff? The truth of the matter is that with every general election, the commission prepares, at least for some time now in the last 3 electoral cycles. We also prepare for that possibility. Reason is, until the Constitution was amended, there was only 1 week for presidential runoff in case it happens. And with the number of registered voters we have, it is almost impossible to print the ballot papers required and the result sheets and deliver them to locations and conduct the elections as required. So with every election for the last 3 electoral cycles, we also make provision for the possibility of a presidential runoff in case it happens. If it happens, then we'll have no issues. And this year is no exception. Fortunately, the time frame has also been extended. The 4th alteration to the Constitution has extended it by 2 more weeks. So it's now 3 weeks instead of the 1 week we had before. But we always prepare for that possibility. In case it happens, we don't know. It is in the hands of the voters. But if it happens, we will not be caught napping. Thank you.
Thank you. We already borrowed a lot more time, so we're 20 minutes over. My apologies, but I think it was worth having a deeper conversation. This was a technocratic presentation, so this is not the electioneering that we've had yesterday in December, and we will have tomorrow. As you know, the NNPP candidate is speaking here, same time, but we won't overrun as long as today, so that each of the candidates was treated in the same manner. I don't have anything more to do but to say 2 things. One is that the full speech presentation will be both on the INEC and Chatham House website shortly. And to thank Professor Yakubu for coming to Chatham House and spending time here today and answering all our questions. Thank you very much, Prof, and good luck for the election.